Hello and welcome to the National Affairs Broadcasting live from the Dhaka's Gulshan studio. My name is Shamsul Alam Pranto. This is going to be a very exciting episode today as I have some special announcements I will make towards the end. Before I begin the discussion today, I want to introduce all my panelists. In the studio, we have Mr. Ali Ahmed, who is of course an economist and of course member customs of the National Board of Revenue. Welcome to the studio today. And of course on Zoom we have Norman Floyd Barnes, our geopolitical correspondent from Washington DC. Alongside we have Mr. Hassan Reza, who is of course associate professor at Indiana University. I welcome them onto the program as well. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. There is some exciting news that is going online. Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara has said there's a comprehensive ceasefire and full integration agreement between the Syrian government and the SDF group, outlining sweeping measures to restore state authority in the country's northeast. We know the couple of days of fighting has amassed into this result. I want to get the feelings and the vibes from Norman Floyd Barnes, who is joining us from Washington, D.C.
Greetings from Washington, D.C. Today is a federal holiday. We're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King birthday. We are in the process of doing community services, parades, and other things. Like I said, this is a holiday here in the United States. In regards to Syria, the situation ceasefire is a positive thing. That the fighting has been able to been controlled by the Syrian government and the armed forces over there. But right now, the United States sent, as you notice, they have killed one of the leaders of the supposedly terrorist group that killed our three officers over there. And right now, the focus is on basically supporting with the Syrian army and also continue the search for the terrorists and to basically to track them down to make a point that you don't have the option of killing American citizens without being hunted down.
Right. That is, of course, an important update regarding the Middle East, regarding Syria. There is more from the Middle East. I'll give you one of the instances, which includes that Iraq's government on Sunday had announced that U.S. forces has completely initiated a full withdrawal from its military facilities within the country's federal territory, and that includes the Al-Assad Air Base in the Anbar province in western Iraq, which had hosted U.S. troops for more than 2 decades. That's quite important because given the rhetoric in the last 19 or so days, we've seen the U.S. military bases come under a strain because of the Iran protest, because of the narratives from U.S. administration. So I want to come into the studio regarding these two specific news. One is Ahmed al-Shara has said that a ceasefire is in place, and the other being that Iraq's air base is being emptied and the U.S. military has been leaving that place, and today there's a final, there's no one left in that airbase from the U.S. military. So that is important because that was one of the suspected places where Iran may choose to retaliate. So I want to understand how you felt this Middle East is a turning point for global politics.
This no doubt is a turning point. The thing is, these bases were there because they could easily launch aggression in the vicinity from those bases. But now that Iran is almost universally believed to have come up with weapons that can reach any of those targets anywhere, even the United States, it is said. So they thought that maintaining those bases at a cost is useless because these carriers are there. If need be, they can come. These bases are unnecessary expenses now. So that is why they are withdrawing. Even UK has also started initially reducing the number of active personnel and then finally going for withdrawal, because political and military situations are changing, and the aggression of Iran that was so much on the card, we all frightened in the last episode of this program we discussed. I felt apprehensive about the attack on Iran. but on going home I see that America has not dared or did not thought it was worthwhile or wise to go for this attack. So, things are changing strategically also. That is the reason why these changes are taking place with personnel bases and everything. It is not that they have become very honest and good friends. They think it is useless and easy targets for the long range missiles of Iran.
Of course, it was a success story when we heard that Nicolas Maduro was captured by the US forces. Similar pattern was established with Iran, but this time around Iran has proven to show the entire world, even after being condemned at the Security Council, UN Security Council, they have showed that they have some kind of resilience with the narratives that are being thrown. But there is important news coming out of the US. Almost 1,500 soldiers are on standby for a possible Minnesota deployment, according to the National Guard, also according to CNN News. I want to get the attention of Mr. Hassan Reza, who's of course joining us from Indiana University. There's a trying time. Helen Good was murdered by ICE agents in what the videos became viral internationally, and because of that, people are now showing demonstrations in all the states of America. And of course, the Pentagon had ordered about 1,500 active soldiers, duty soldiers, to be deployed for Minnesota. This is of course according to the Trump administration. I want to ask you this question. We see a rift between the people and the administration in the United States. What is the outcome, and where do you see this issue going?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. So, yes, this is a tension that is going on, and that tension derives from this idea that how the Trump administration is trying to implement this policy. They're aggressively implementing the immigration policy, and many cases that has been violating some of those constitutional right. Specifically, the U.S. Constitution allows, say, for example, to protest as well as to petition the government, but that has been at stake right at this moment, given the way the government is trying to implement that policy. Now, in regards to that, the way they're trying to justify these potential deployment of troops, Trump administration is trying to use the what we call Insurrection Act. It is a very arcane law that allows U.S. Soldiers to be deployed to quell any unrest or revolution. But it was much more of a rhetoric than the way it's been currently implemented, because the government, even though President Trump has threatened to use it, but in fact, last couple of days, he backed down a little bit about that. So I don't see that it's likelihood that they're going to do it. But at the same time, what they're trying to do, reinforcing the current battalion in a sense, the way they're sending more ICE agents to that region, and they're becoming much more aggressive in terms of like dealing with the crowd and other protests as well.
Of course, that's a very good analysis of the issue, but deportations were a part of the Donald Trump administration even in the first year. We've seen a lot of illegal immigrants who were there in the United States being deported to their native cities. I want to get a comment from Norman Floyd Barnes. I believe this is a very important time for the people of the United States of America. A U.S. citizen was murdered by ICE, and ever since then, the people and the administration do not meet eye to eye, whereas the ICE agents have been doubled up according to the media statements. I want to get a vibe from Norman Floyd Barnes in Washington, D.C. I know that the National Guard has been deployed in D.C. and other states as well, but this killing cannot be just a one-off incident. Of course, they did not need to resort to this kind of overwhelming show of power. So I want to understand the realistic aspect in which we know that the midterm election is coming up in November, and of course the popularity of Donald Trump will be shown in his activities in this time towards up until the midterm. So I want to understand what is your analysis. An American citizen has been killed, and it has caused a shockwave around the entire globe.
Thank you for this question, but let me create a scenario for you.
Please.
What is happening? The United States is very divided right now between the Trump administration and the citizens of the of this country. What I'm saying that is the Pentagon, under the direction of the president, has activated, actually staging 1,500 U.S. military troops. These troops are highly trained troops from Alaska. They are specialized in Arctic tactics, warfare. They have been staged and put on alert to respond to Minnesota. And the purpose of responding to Minnesota is when the president decides that he wants to institute the Insurrection Act, which means the U.S. president can bring up the U.S. military to put down any civil unrest that occurs in the United States. And the reason for that is that the president and the Trump administration do not believe they're getting support from the state and local. The state and local law enforcement and public safety has the ability to control and manage this situation. But because he feels exactly that the governor and the administration, the local and the police are not supporting the ICE agents in the city, he feels that they have to bring in the military to enforce it. This is not a win-win situation. This is basically most considered as a invasion of the state and local area. This is causing a real problem with the United States government and its people. As midterms come up, the people are, first, they are concerned and they are very incensed about this situation with the immigration enforcement and how it's been done by the Trump administration. The issue is not the enforcement of the immigration issue, it's enforcement is the technique. The technique. The technique is basically showing signs of 1930 Nazi German Gestapo, police tactics. These tactics are not going to be tolerated by the people of the United States. And the Trump administration right now is putting itself in a very precarious situation because right now, if this continues, there will be conflict in the United States. And some people are stating that that is the purpose of this, is to cause a uproar so the midterm elections will be put off, delayed, or canceled. That is not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman Floyd Barnes. Of course, that's a very trying time in the United States of America, as well as the entire world, because of the American issues that they have picked out with other nations such as Venezuela, Iran, and one cannot forget about Greenland and the growing strain between the European nations and the United States, of course, over the Arctic Circle and an island that compromises this circle. I want to come into the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. This is a very trying time. We are hearing about protests, about the people who are now facing off with the administration, them having to deploy an insurrection act, them having to deploy 1,500 people. This is, of course, a matter of international significance, as the American people and the American government are not meeting eye to eye, and there is ICE enforcement and the National Guard deployed in almost all the 50 states. So I want to understand what is your overreach for the year? How do you see this year in American politics? Do you think Donald Trump is set to lose, who we now know as friends may become foe, given the certain conditions?
Well, you talked about the next upcoming election vis-a-vis these things. Everybody now says that the upcoming midterm elections in November is going to be a disaster for Donald Trump and his party. That is why a lot of Republicans are gradually distancing themselves from Donald Trump's side. So it is most likely that they will lose the election. But the most important thing, as if I understand, these are not in the press already, but impeachment procedures are also prepared, getting prepared by the Congress, especially first of all the House, the Representatives, and then the Senate. So I do not know what happens, and I am nobody to make a forecast. But I have a feeling, a gut feeling, that Donald Trump may not be able to complete his term of 4 years. So that is why there is good. If that goes, that is good for the country. But he is also trying to push it towards a civil war sort of thing. You see, he especially becomes aggressive when there are a democratic governor or democratic senators and all those. These are absolute partisanship. A president comes from a party, all right, but after he becomes a president, he is the president of the entire country. He cannot do these things. But Donald Trump has been doing a lot of things that is not governed by modern civilized standards of behavior of head of state or head of country. So the country is also at the same time is gradually, not very gradually, quite speedily proceeding towards a severe civil strife. I only pray that they do not go for a civil war, not a repetition of 1860-65. That would be bad for the whole world. So I only wish he is taken care of before that through the internal means of control.
Of course, nothing in the American administration will be burdened to a certain degree that their international relations and foreign policy have been shifted in the last 19 days in comparison with the last 1 year of Donald Trump's second term. I have a small question for Mr. Hassan Reza. This is a very trying time. We know that Donald Trump does not meet eye to eye with other policy makers, and even on worldwide issues. When you look at Greenland, a bipartisan policy making team from the American politicians have visited Denmark and Greenland to show their support that they do not are not in line with the commands or with the demands of US President Donald Trump. And of course, there is exciting news that is coming up where you cannot use military intervention because of the fact that Greenland and Denmark are members of NATO. You use economic weapons that would of course affect not only Americans but also the European states that manufacture products. My question to Mr. Hassan Reza, this is a very strange kind of pattern where when we used to know after the World War II, we used to refer to US and the allies as US and Europe. Today, they are the very foe in the battlefield. I want to understand how you felt regarding Greenland and this ongoing situation.
So this is a very interesting question and maybe requires a little bit of lengthy discussion. So one of the dynamics that you talked about, for example, where our lawmakers are visiting the Greenland and expressing support. So there is two dynamics going on. Say, for example, primarily the American foreign policy is run by several people, including President Trump, including his right-wing neocons, and some of them do not have deeper understanding of foreign policy, do not have respect for internationalism. In their mind, the America First is their mantra, and that defines everything they try to do. So what's happening in these dynamics? One is President Trump and his dictatorial attitude that defined many of those policy decisions. On the other hand, we see that our congressional committees, senators, and others, even from the both parties, are reluctant to comply with that sort of policy. That's where the internal dynamics look like. In terms of the NATO relationship, NATO and then like the American relationship, if you look at how consistent President Trump has been in his even previous era or the previous time of presidency, he consistently seeing NATO to be an ineffective organization. part of his grudge coming from is that because he had a real fascination with Russia, specifically the President Putin, and the way he runs. In many cases, he expresses his fascination in many different ways. But the challenge with this particular aspect of it is that he takes that model of leadership and tries to imply or apply it in many different circumstances. For that particular crisis, we see that the conflict between Russia and the NATO has vexed Trump enormously because he doesn't want to see that America is draining money to Ukraine and other stuff, because it goes against his, like the America First, so-called America First policy. When I say so-called, there is an interpretation, but I'm not going to go into that. But now the challenge with America is this, like when in the previous administration, when Trump was there, he asked NATO members to increase their own budget for their defense, which they did not do, or in many cases, they could not meet that requirements. That also vexed it. In America, President Trump has his own interpretation, thinking like why America is going to spend money for the NATO alliance when each of them are very rich, and we do not live in a post-second or post. We are not living in a second world war circumstances or like post-Soviet republic threat. So these combine into this. Why with the Greenland circumstances is a whole different, that's the way we understand it right now, because he wanted, even though all these justification they are putting forth, say for example, it has vast mineral, it has it's going to, in future, it's going to, open a passageway once this Arctic ice get thin. China and other international power are trying to hold a footstep in it. These are not, in fact, very rational reason for him, because he wanted that way. And that has been a policy, and people are trying to, specifically Trump administration, are trying to show certain, rationale for why that needs to be. So it is, in terms of the relation between the US and the NATO, the longer relationship, it's going to affect seriously, because already that certain Germany, France, and other countries are send their token soldiers, or the army troops are there. But at the same time, NATO is the most profoundly shaken by these threat. So we don't know exactly how they are going to react. Probably they are going to accept it. If America just forcefully take this territory, it's going to break up the NATO and American alliance. But how it's going to play out, we don't know. But one thing I would like to tell you that the Mette Frederiksen, she suggested, the Danish Prime Minister, she said things are not good. It's pretty gloomy there. So because both Greenland and Denmark met vice president and other political establishment, the foreign minister from these two countries, and the meeting didn't go well. That is the complexity right now.
I want to thank
I'm sorry
Mr.
it took me long to explain all these dynamics.
No, it's completely all right. I want to thank Mr. Hassan Raza for his analysis regarding these latest issues. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a short commercial break. After the break, we shall be discussing more rhetorics from around the world. Do stay with us.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ ৩০ বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো ৮০টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design.
Welcoming all of our viewers back onto the International Affairs program. We have a huge panel today, and I want to continue the discussion with Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. I know that there is a major midterm election in 2026, but I want to understand the conflicts between other state officials or other members of state who have of course joined on various issues. But I want to talk about J.B. Pritzker, who is of course the Illinois governor for the state of Chicago, and often or not so, he has seen being not seeing eye to eye with Donald Trump on various issues. Some of them include the militarization of cities, and he opposes Donald Trump's threats and actions involving federal troops like the ICE and CPB. And of course, there is federal overreach. In Illinois, under the Pritzker, an Attorney General Kwame Raoul has sued the Trump administration over alleged unlawful tactics by federal agencies like ICE and CPB in their own state of Chicago. And of course, Pritzker has adopted an all of the above media strategy, directly confronting Trump to present a contrasting message and positioning himself as a fighter against him. Of course, I want to understand from Norman Floyd, who was shortly disconnected from our servers. I was talking about J.B. Pritzker, someone who has stood up to Donald Trump, someone who everyone in Chicago looks up to, and the various issues that he sees, the policy differences. Pritzker champions policing or policies like raising the minimum wage and supporting health care, contrasting with Trump's focus with fundamental disagreements on immigration and federal power. I want to understand from Norman Floyd Barnes. We know the election is coming. We know the last 19 days has been important for America's position in the entire world affairs. But how do you assess the fact that we have someone like J.B. Pritzker who don't meet eye to eye with Donald Trump? Mr. Norman Floyd Barnes.
Yes, thank you. Actually, he's not the only one. There's many people in the United States that do not agree. State, local, federal, international. They do not agree with the policies, the procedures, and the technique currently being used. So the end of the day, it's not going to have any effect because the Trump administration has set this system and has set up a system where basically they decide what is policy, what is law. The consequences can range anywhere from tariffs, taxes, sanctions, imprisonment. I mentioned imprisonment now, and also character assassination, and lastly, the military. So these tactics are being utilized right now as we see more daily. If you go against the president and his administration and his will, you will suffer. Footnote, The discussions are now talking about Canada. Canada is talking about being defiant to the U.S., doing other things. The discussions down in the White House about Canada inability in the minds of the president and his administration is that Canada can't defend the Arctic. There's more discussion about this Arctic North area and the control of it. The same issues they're talking about Greenland, the same issues now is being discussed about Canada.
Of course, Canada cannot be ignored when we talk about U.S. and its foreign policy. And according to the BBC live stream page, Keir Starmer is to give Downing Street speech as Trump plans a 10% tariffs in Greenland row. Any country in the support of the sovereign nation of Greenland will be slapped with a tariff. Of course, I mentioned it slightly earlier that when you can't use military forces, you use economic forces as a matter to create a situation where everyone has to meet your demand. I want to ask this question to Mr. Hassan Raza in Indiana University. It's a quite important build-up, if you would like to call it. Joint military drills have also taken place in Greenland, and almost all of Europe, including Germany's militaries, are now stationed in Greenland. The tension are very high. I want to understand what is your overreach? What do you see happening with Greenland? Is this going to be the stage of another plunder like we've seen in Venezuela? What is your analysis?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. Again, the U.S. is in a sense, superpower. And unfortunately, the way we are behaving, not a responsible way. And that is a blatant disregard for international law. Just think about this idea that we are trying to say, this country is mine. Because I want it, because it's for the interest of America's national security. And that interest of national security is, or the Americans' broader interest, doesn't have any major definition. It just it defined by primarily the president at this point. With having said that, if all these countries that are trying to tell us that they are going to deploy troops or other machines to protect Denmark. Denmark is not a big country. Other countries also cannot sustain an American pressure. Forget about any type of military conflict because they are not gonna send their troops to just like defend Greenland. No way, because no country is gonna take that step. But it is a sort of showing the solidarity. But what it's going to do is going to kill the NATO. That's for sure. That has been there. But what is missing in this entire debate, I find it really frustrating, is that we do not ask what the Greenlanders want. Their voice is not being heard. It is a fight between, as if like it's two imperial powers, NATO in one hand, on the other hand, America. They are just trying to divide the world as if like we are in the 18th century, 17th century. I could just say it and then like I could just take that. And that idea just completely deny the rights of the people of that particular country. So it's really complicated at this point, the way America is pushing towards that, the way America is just like expressing itself to be an imperial power is not the right expression, and we don't know how it's going to go.
Of course. I must thank Mr. Hassan Raza, who's of course in Indiana University, for his analysis and statements on the program today, as well as Norman Floyd Barnes, who had joined us from Washington, D.C. I believe due to time constraint, I can no longer keep them on the broadcast. However, I want to focus back into the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. As you were hearing, both are panelists from across the globe in two different places in America. This 10% tariff And of course, this is uncertainty. The gold prices has gone up. In a time of uncertainty, gold touched almost $4,600 or for an ounce on Monday, while the silver price rose to the peak of $94 an ounce. So precious metals are seen as a safer asset to hold in times of uncertainty. Given the fact that both of the gold and silver prices have gone up in the past year, and it's not only in the United States, it's all around the globe. Even in Bangladesh,
it is a global price.
It's a global issue, and even in Bangladesh, the price had gone up. But coming back to the tariff issue, initially when Donald Trump had started his second term, he had tariffed 70 nations with various tariff packages depending on what their outreach was, what the individual nation was doing on a global stage. Of course, as a mean to strain relationships with allies. I can give an example. Because of the Russian crude export towards India and India's understanding with Vladimir Putin, India's support to the economy of Russia, the war in Ukraine has ravaged on. That is just a basic mere example. So, of course, Donald Trump had given his reaction to hoist a tariff package and, of course, sanctioning Russian oil. But Keir Starmer is ready to give Downing Street a speech regarding the 10% implied by Donald Trump. Of course, any nation in support of Greenland's sovereignty will be faced with this 10%. I want to understand the economic perspectives from your analysis.
Very interesting, you see. The history has such great ironies in a matter of 75-80 years, because when NATO was founded at the after the end of the Second World War, America was in the lead, and they took all these European countries, and America led the thing in many ways, funding and everything. Purpose was to stop Russia. China, of course, later became an important power, but stop Russia from expanding its power and conquering the rest of European countries and other countries also. So, America is leading and the rest of Europe is following them to stop Russia from expanding its sphere of influence and communization, so to say. But the irony is that today that Russia is gradually occupying one of these European countries, Ukraine, and Donald Trump, the American president, has almost declared a war against the European members of NATO. So, see, now Russia is attacking one of the members of Europe, and Donald Trump is at war, almost at war now. He says 10% additional duty. And Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, he is addressing his country. We knew of this. So, Europe is getting prepared, and America is there. Although the other Indiana University professor, he said there has been already opinion polls taken both in America and in Greenland. Greenland, only 56,000 persons live there, and overwhelmingly, both in the United States and in Greenland, overwhelmingly they opposed Donald Trump's policies. For purchase, they oppose it. For outright occupation, they oppose it still more, and oppose it by a very wide margin. I do not at the moment remember the exact number, but very wide margin. I have seen it with my own eyes on the TV screens. So, the people of both Greenland and the United States, for which Donald Trump wants to acquire this country by force if necessary, he said, they are opposed to it, and he will still do it. So, think of, even I believe that Donald Trump might be facing also internal problems. The American people will not want it. American politicians will not want it. And you started at the beginning of this program that a joint group of senators and members of the House of Representatives,
right,
they came from United States, and they said they were very polite that we will try to convince the president that this is not, etc., etc., but they are opposed to it very seriously. So, this is a the historical irony that he is doing this. But I think he is not all that. I think if somebody now suspects that he is carrying out the job of Russia for Russians, because he has his own business, his family has business there in Russia. So he is trying to protect that side of his interests.
And not only in Russia, he also has it in Saudi Arabia. He has interests in Saudi
all
Arabia.
of these countries.
Of course, one cannot imagine the US president ordering the US military to go into Saudi Arabia to rob MBS and then to plunder its oil. But they would do the very same thing with Venezuela.
First of all, there are rules of war in America, constitutional obligation that if there is an emergency, the president can immediately ask for a strike or ask for stoppage. But he must obtain congressional approval for a war. He has not done it anywhere till now.
Of course.
He cannot do this. And he cannot do a lot of things that he is doing. And he is facing impeachment. There are things are moving. So I don't know. Let us see where it all ends.
Of course, astounding observation by Mr. Ali Ahmed. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go for a short break. But after the break, I have some exciting news that I will share with you all. Do stay with us.
Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker in international standard billiard zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs. I was joined by Mr. Hassan Reza from Indiana University as well as Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. But in the studio, we have Mr. Ali Ahmed, and I want to get a small remark regarding this Greenland issue. One have forgotten in the last 19 days that Russia was ever at a war with Ukraine. Why? Because the narrative has shifted, because Donald Trump has shifted his focus towards Greenland. Right now, NATO remains at a precarious situation, and everyone who was very vocal regarding Ukraine, regarding the fact that even Zelensky is now saying Ukraine's air defense supplies is insufficient. So the notoriety, the focus, the attention, all of it has shifted towards Greenland. Leaving the Ukraine-Russia war.
This might be purposeful.
Of course, it is purposeful. It left the Ukraine-Russia war almost unattended. What is your last closing remarks?
Not from the Russian side, of course. Even last night there was reports, and we saw live that they were bombing and all that, and this is process of benighting the whole country of Ukraine. That is going on. So it is not unattended by Russians, by the entire European countries, because their attention has been diverted by Donald Trump. So would it be too much to suppose or to say that Donald Trump is now siding with Mr. Putin?
No, of course, it is a time where Donald Trump could be siding with Putin, and in such a situation, the coalition of the willing, of course, that is a grouping of the European nations that had said that they would support Ukraine in reconstruction of Ukraine in the coming days. But right now, Europe seems to be looking at tensions on either side of the flank of Europe. So it's a trying time. I want to understand how you felt before I can close the program today. This entire rhetoric, what is your closing statement? Do you see that Europe is going through a trying time? Do you see tensions between UK and Russia?
Yeah, it is trying time, no doubt, but a very interesting time also. Even if there is a world war, we know whom we are siding with mentally, psychologically and otherwise. But this is a very interesting thing. We knew that there is a war between Russia and Ukraine, and the whole world is divided, the Europeans being on the Ukraine side. America was there, and they were trying to bring him on the European side. In the midst of all this, he expressed he did it before, but his interest of another country, just imagine, it is another country, had no enmity, nothing, and he is interested in acquiring this country. He said, to quote him, by purchase if possible and by force if necessary. That is, he is not ruling out war to occupy it. So that enraged the rest of the NATO countries, and that is why the British Prime Minister is addressing his country. We will be understanding it later, but at the moment we couldn't hear it because we are in the program. It is going to be a very tough time for the world. So these are very puzzling time. We do not know what is coming out of it all.
And meanwhile, inflation has been on the rise.
It must be in a situation like this.
Of course. I must thank you, Mr. Ali Ahmed, for your contributions and valuable insight to our program. And of course, thanking my Zoom connections, Mr. Hassan Reza and Norman Floyd Barnes, from joining us from Indiana and of course, Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special announcement for today. When I close the program, I always talk about what happened significantly in this day in history. So I want to wish this studio, because today is significant because it is the birthday of SATV, or South Asian television. This very studio was born here 14 years ago. I want to thank our Managing Director, Mr. Salahuddin Ahmed, as well as the Board of Directors for the sincerity and dedication for the success of this channel. Alongside, I want to thank the cable operators, journalists, staff, those who have helped us on this journey and those who have left us as well. I want to wish them in remembrance. I also want to wish all the staff here in the studio as well a happy birthday. And that was, of course, the last 14 years of this channel. And today is, of course, SATV's birthday. I want to thank all those who have contributed to the success of this television channel. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I shall catch you all on tomorrow's program.
Let us give a big hand, wishing future successes for the SATV.
Thank you.
A big hand from all of us.
Thank you.